All right, let's just jump right in. You know, faith, religion, spirituality, these are huge parts of so many people's lives, but they're also complicated, right? They can be this incredible force for good, but they can also cause a lot of pain. So in this explicable, we're going to try to unpack that. Why is it such a double-edged sword? I mean, you've heard this a million times, right? I'm spiritual, but not religious. It's kind of become a default for a whole generation. And what it really gets at is this idea that you can have a real deep connection with, well, whatever you want to call the divine, without all the baggage of organized religion, the rules, the buildings, the hierarchy. This one phrase, it's the perfect place for us to start. So this is how that idea usually gets broken down into this pretty clear-cut comparison. You've got religion on one side. People see that as all that external stuff, right? Man-made rules, organized systems, trying to look perfect on the outside. But then you have relationship on the other side. And that's framed as all internal. It's personal, it's real, it's about what's in your heart. And for a lot of folks, this is a starting point. Religion is the rigid system, and a relationship is the authentic journey. And, you know, there's a story from the Bible that perfectly captures this tension. A guy gets healed by Jesus. I mean, a totally life-changing, incredible spiritual experience, a miracle. But what happens next? The religious leaders show up, and they aren't talking about the miracle. Nope, they're upset because the guy broke a rule by carrying his sleeping mat on the Sabbath. Seriously. And for a lot of people, that story is it in a nutshell. It's the perfect example of how rigid religion can just completely miss the point. Okay, so that's a really powerful story, and it's a compelling argument. But is that the whole story? Maybe not. Let's kind of turn this whole thing on its head for a minute and look at it from a totally different angle. So, instead of just talking about stories and feelings, what happens when we look at the hard data? You know, when scientists and researchers actually study what leads to a flourishing life, what makes people happy, healthy, connected, what do they find? Well, the answer might actually surprise you a lot. So look at this number right here, 25 to 35%. What is that? That's the drop in your risk of dying over about a 10 to 15 year period if you go to a religious service every single week. Let that sink in. That is a huge impact on how long you live. It's right up there with some of the biggest public health breakthroughs we have. Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting. When you dig into the details, the data is just crystal clear. What's the biggest predictor of well-being? It's not just saying, I'm religious, and get this, it's not private spirituality, like meditating alone. Nope. The number one factor and it's not even close, is communal practice. It's getting together with other people, the very thing that the whole spiritual but not religious idea often pushes away. And the benefits aren't just small things either. We're talking about way lower suicide rates, like 3 to 6 times lower, a 30 to 50% drop in the likelihood of divorce, less depression, just greater satisfaction with life in general. And on top of that, people in these communities give more to charity and volunteer more of their time. The takeaway is pretty undeniable. Something really powerful is happening when people gather together in these communities. So let's back up a bit and look at this historically. This whole split we have now between religion and spirituality, a medieval monk would have had no idea what you were talking about. Oh man. It would have seemed totally bizarre because, for them, all that superstructured, ritualized stuff, what we'd call religion, that wasn't getting in the way of a spiritual experience. It was the engine that made it happen. Yeah, check out this quote from a monk named John Cassian, way back in the 4th century. He basically said that by doing the rituals, like reciting the Psalms over and over again with your community, your heart starts to beat in time with the words. You actually start to feel what the person who wrote them felt. The ritual wasn't some boring, empty thing. It was like a technology for creating a real, personal, deep, spiritual experience. The structure wasn't the enemy of spontaneity. It was the thing that gave birth to it. Okay, so let's take stock. The simple idea of good spirituality versus bad religion, it kind of falls apart when you look at the data, and it doesn't really hold up historically either. So, what's really going on here? A scholar named Marcus Borg had a really fascinating take on this. He said, look, maybe the important thing isn't what you call yourself, religious, spiritual, whatever. The crucial factor is the specific faith image you have of the divine. So what's your mental picture of God or Jesus? What do you see when you think of them? Because that, he argued, is what changes everything. And the crazy thing is, these images aren't set in stone. They change a lot, even for the top experts. Just look at how the scholarly view of Jesus has swung back and forth over the last couple centuries. First, it was all about the historical Jesus, the man who actually lived. Then, whoosh, the pendulum swings, and it's only about the Christ of faith, the divine figure. And now, we're kind of in a both-end place. And every time that pendulum swings, it completely changes how people understand and live out their faith. So, why does any of this matter? Because the image you have in your head directly shapes how you think you're supposed to live, right? If your primary image of Jesus is the divine Savior, then being a Christian is all about believing the right things about Him. If you see Him mainly as a moral teacher, then it's about trying to be a good person. But if you see him as a world-ending prophet, well, then your faith is about making a huge, life-altering decision right now. The image you hold literally defines what you do. But here's the turn. This powerful mix of deep belief, tight-knit community, and trusted authority, it has a really dark side. Any structure that has the power to do so much good, well, it also has the power to do an incredible amount of damage. It's time to look at the other edge of that sword. Wow, I mean. This quote from the scholar Robert Orsi just sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? The holy proved to be the best hiding place for evil. He's saying that the very thing that makes religion special, the sacredness, the trust people place in it, can be twisted and used to cause a unique and devastating kind of pain, spiritual trauma, and we need to be really clear about what that means. Spiritual trauma is so uniquely awful because the person causing the harm isn't just a boss or a teacher. They're seen as a representative of God Himself, another Christ. So when they betray that trust, it doesn't just feel like a person let you down. For the victim, it can feel like God has violated them, and that just shatters your entire world. So what happens to people who go through this? Well, it's not simple. You might think everyone just loses their faith, but the research shows it's much more complicated. Some survivors completely rebuild their idea of God, throwing out the punishing image and finding a loving one. Others, and this incredible, actually come out with a stronger faith, one that's more thoughtful and personal. And then, of course, many do walk away from it all. All right, let's try to pull all of this together. We started with a simple, popular idea: spiritual, not religious. We looked at surprising data, we dipped into history, and we faced the really painful reality of spiritual abuse. So, what's the big picture here? What does this all add up to? This chart basically lays out the whole journey we've been on. We started with this thesis, right? That personal spirituality is the good stuff and organized religion is the bad stuff. But then, boom, we hit the antithesis. The actual data shows that gathering in a religious community is incredibly good for people. So where does that leave us? It leads to this synthesis. Faith isn't simple. It's not inherently good or bad. It's a powerful force shaped by community. And like any power, it can build things up or tear them down. So, at the end of the day, what's the real takeaway here? It's that the power of religion, for good and for bad, comes from its secret sauce. Its unique combination of things. It's not just a social club, and it's not just a list of beliefs. It's how it weaves together these huge ideas about the meaning of life, a moral code to live by, and these incredibly strong social connections. That's the formula. And that's what makes it one of the most powerful forces in human history. Now, of course, there's the famous critique from Karl Marx. He called religion the opium of the people. His argument was basically that it just dulls the pain of real-world suffering and injustice and stops people from doing anything about it. But after everything we've looked at today, is it really that simple? Is it just a painkiller, or is it something more complicated? Is faith a true double-edged sword, a force that can inspire the absolute best in us and the absolute worst, something that can help us flourish and also cause the deepest wounds? That, I think, is the question we're left with.